So, I don't know I don't know what a blue check means anymore. Maybe everybody can get them at this point on.
You just pay for them.
You can pretty much pay for a blue check.
Yeah.
But I did research on the back end, and I guess this gentleman is it said content creator / something, so he's one of those. But he had a tweet that said, and this was in response to a tweet from Lil Yachty. It says, Lil Yachty reveals that he just listened to Jay-Z's Black album a few days ago, first time. He said, young rappers don't listen to classic rap, and young hoopers don't watch basketball.
We had the conversation before about when he first listened to Notorious Big. Did the same thing with the Jay-Z records. He listened to it, talked about how lyrically good Jay-Z was from listening to those records. But honestly, this is the same thing that's true in music, period. There's records that came out that your parents may have really liked or were fans of that you didn't listen to until later in life anyway. We gotta realize how young Lil Yachty is.
Isn't he mid-20s?
Yeah. Late 20s probably at this point. I guess my question was going to be, why do people always say this is a requirement? Maybe in sports I could see it as an athlete watching older film and, trying to see the greats. I used to, you study the greats. I could kind of see that. But in music, I don't know why people say this is a requirement other than just paying homage, because a lot of people were saying, yeah, man, people, they just don't understand the old school. They don't respect it. They don't go back and watch the elders and Herc and all the rest of these guys. I'm like, I can respect them, but I never studied them. I'm going to
stop you right there. Have you ever listened to a Furious 5 album?
No.
Have you ever listened?
I respect them.
You respect them, but you've never listened to one of their albums?
No.
Because do you want to?
Why would I do that?
But see, that's my point. That was going to be my question is, why do people think this is a requirement?
That's what I'm saying.
For young artists.
That's why I'm saying that, because we talk about greats in hip hop. I can tell you a gang of albums that I've never heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really speak on them being great other than their influence off of a couple songs that I
makes you no less hip hop than you are.
It doesn't.
That's my point.
But the way
unless you're white.
Well, you might have to do a little more research.
he got an extra couple courses, credit hours. You're right.
You might
right.
have to do a little more research.
Yeah, they're gonna try to play him in the comments. Go ahead, bro.
There's albums literally that are considered classic hip hop albums that I've never heard. And do I care to hear them? I can't say that I do.
You're being honest.
I am. I'm being very honest. I can't say that I care about hearing those albums. Now, if you talk about, I'm the type of person, if you've never heard, I have certain albums in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you're from a certain generation, if you never heard this album, I might feel a certain type of way. One of them is Boogie Down Productions. What's the name of the album?
Not Criminal Minded, but
Criminal Minded.
Criminal Minded.
If you haven't made yourself familiar with that album, you don't have to like everything on it. But at the time and place where that came out, that's one of the albums. Couple Public Enemy albums.
Takes a Nation.
LL albums.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But when we're talking about people that we consider forefathers of hip hop, I've never heard some of those releases, and I honestly don't care to. For him to reach back, Jay-Z obviously still makes music. So it kind of would make sense in that way. Right. Form that I'm gonna check out this Jay-Z album that I've never listened to, because he has classic albums though. A lot of the albums that we're talking about from forefathers,
they got records. They got records,
but they don't have classic albums. They don't have classic material other than those songs that, you know what I'm saying?
No, that's
structure hip hop.
That's the angle I was coming from. Is I don't like I don't like that people force that. Because it's to Terry's point, I'm a hypocrite if I say, the young dudes got to listen to everything and go back and know where you come from. Do your knowledge. Do your research. But I'm capping if I say I've heard all the Slick Rick albums. Love Slick Rick. I ain't heard all
who the
albums.
artists are. You're familiar with this artist. 100%. You know a couple songs.
Yeah, but that requirement just to say, you have to go back and listen to all the music. I don't buy into that.
Well, I'll play white devil's advocate for you real quick.
Okay.
When there are rock artists, and I don't even know who's like the pop and rock artist right now, at least, if you asked, say if there's some contemporary rock artist and they asked them about the Rolling Stones, or you asked them about the Doors, or even if you asked them about Bon Jovi or Pearl Jam, if they didn't know it, they'd at least have the good sense to pretend or not say I don't know who that is. That's old. Like
There's the major difference, though.
I get it.
Speak on the difference, Long.
Those were like cultural icons across an entire nation of rock music. Like even when we talk like Melly Mel, like if you're within like people within hip hop know Melly Mel
For sure.
For the message.
Yes.
you know,
For sure.
But everybody knows who the Beatles are. Everybody knows who the Rolling Stones are.
He got me there.
Like
he got me
I don't
there.
even the Doors. I don't know a lot of people that don't know who the Doors are. Like that would be more
Well,
obscure.
you know,
More obscure.
They have a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
More obscure, but like
I do know who the Doors are.
it's like the rock music was it was like pop culture, like almost immediate. It feels like, whereas hip hop, it took a while to get there.
You're right. It was still a
like that
subculture. What when I think until Run DMC came along,
Yeah,
we're
that's
talking very much a subculture.
Right.
Now, if you say now, I would. And there's going to be some old heads who older than us who would feel some kind of way about this. But if you told me you didn't know who Melly Mel was, I get it. Or you can't associate him with anything other than the message. I get it. But like if you got to Run DMC,
Yeah.
and you said you can't associate them with anything, that's going to be a little bit harder for me to swallow.
It's a little different.
I think, I agree.
Because that's
I
when,
agree.
okay, this is when we hit Rolling Stone. This is when we hit MTV. Like this is, if it weren't for them, you wouldn't be here.
So if
Exactly.
somebody tells you, if somebody says that is of age, we'll say, just to be fair, balanced. They're like, yeah, man, I ain't never heard. I don't know nothing about Rakim. I'm gonna be like, what?
It literally depends on what generation you're from. So
That's what I'm trying to
even
qualify.
to the whole rock and roll argument. So we stated all of these rock and roll artists and bands that are top tier when it comes to rock and roll.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody about the Ramones, some people consider them top tier when it comes to rock and
I
roll.
don't know a Nan Ramone song.
Exactly. And you can't.
And I grew up on rock and roll.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like the entry level to punk type stuff.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who that is, then okay,
they're
who
not-
cares?
They're not the Beatles though.
But the Beatles are the pop side of things when it comes to rock and roll
I don't know.
versus the Ramones are the
ahead,
more
man.
obscure.
Go ahead, Lon.
But you don't care.
The equivalent to the Beatles in hip hop is like Snoop Dogg. Like
It's
Yeah.
got to be somebody like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's got to be somebody
you
like
know,
that.
like-
Yeah.
Like
don't
even
know.
if you didn't care for the music, you know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows who Snoop Dogg is, and they may not be able to tell you one song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, Melly Mel, or what's the guy that Spools loves from Philly?
Schoolie D.
Schoolie D's like the Electric Light Orchestra or something. You know what I mean? It's just like this
Oh,
random.
you just stunning right there. You stunning with your knowledge right
I'm
there.
just saying, like, it's one of those type of things. You know,
I like, yeah.
my thing is like people move through life at different paces.
Right.
And if you're a school of something and you love something, then you're going to get to it eventually. It's not like hip hop culture is something that you can sit down and just learn in a year.
Yeah, you don't get a
There's
manual to tell you.
no curriculum to figure this stuff out unless you're taking classes, and even still, you're not going to learn everything. So
That's true.
I think there's a little bit more of a shock value when a hip hop artist says, "Oh, I've never listened to another hip hop artist album," and it's somebody like Jay-Z, who you can consider as a Led Zeppelin of whatever, you know what I mean? So I get it, but at the same time, like, we all move at our own pace.
Yeah.
There
That's
are
what
artists.
I was-
There are artists from past eras that I eventually would want to listen to. It's just like sometimes I just don't feel like sitting down and listen to some old that I know I'm not going to enjoy.
I'm gonna give you an example. I literally listened to the Beach Boys album because Jay Morris said that it was one of his
Pet
favorite
Sounds.
albums coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it with my new ears, and I'm not gonna have that same reaction because I didn't listen to it back then.
Back then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, mind you, even when I discovered Pet Sounds, I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and I was just open. It was just like when I was trying to listen to a little bit of everything, and I was like, why do they keep talking about this album? And then I'm like, I'm listening to, because I'm thinking the Beach Boys is, you know, the corny, like, surfer music.
Yeah.
And Pet Sounds is not that.
No, it was literally that album was, to me, literally the songs that I liked were songs that I recognized from hearing it somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
But
they're an iconic group, and I literally just listened to that. And I like to say that I'm well versed as far as music is concerned.
We are.
I can't just say that.
But there's a
I
lot of
only
music,
listen-
man. There's
Yeah, I
of
can't
music.
say that I just listen to hip hop
Good point.
music is not even the thing that I listen to the most nowadays. But in the same token, this is an iconic group that I've never listened to that album, and it's listed on a lot of people's top albums of all time.
Yeah.
So I can't be mad at somebody that's 20 some years old. You got to realize that Reasonable Doubt probably came out 25 years ago. Maybe
It's almost
27.
It's almost 30.
Coming
Almost
up on
30.
30. Yeah.
Came
Okay,
out in
so
96.
so he might have been just born, or maybe a
I don't
couple
think he
years
was born.
removed. Maybe he wasn't. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so
That's what it makes sense that he hasn't heard this album.
the only and I treat this as myself too. You know, for myself, like the only way that I would be upset at somebody not knowing something is if they are speaking from a point of absolution of knowledge to some degree about something, but they don't know it. You know, like if Yachty's over here talking about like, man, none of Jay-Z's past work is as good as any of this over here, but he's never listened to it, or he doesn't know what it's about. To me, that's the only way that this is argument even like to get upset at people like that even exists. It's like when somebody comes in the comments and they're like, Andre 3000 isn't one of the greatest ever, and they're 12.
Yeah,
It's like,
you're not going to think that.
why are you talking?
I mean,
We don't even take that serious.
I mean, you got to look at it like this. You know, it'd be like, you know, just think about when we were outside and we were of varying ages, but still close to in age. If somebody came to me, well, I'm listening to Only Built for Cuban Links in my dorm room in 1995 and says, you don't know you ain't, have you ever listened to Chubby Checker or the Ink Spots? That's exactly what we sound like trying to tell somebody listening to listen to Liquid Swords or Only Built for Cuban Links. And I know that sounds crazy as a point of reference, but that's how long ago it was.
No, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Just like when I've brought this up before, I started listening to Parliament Funkadelic because I was listening to Snoop and Dre and them. This is what they were using to sample. That's what introduced me to Parliament Funkadelic, which was before my time, essentially, and I appreciated it at that moment.
Right.
There's no rule book telling you that in order for you to rap or be in this profession, you have to listen to these albums and you have to be versed in these albums.
True.
His whole style, obviously, he didn't come up listening to Jay-Z or Biggie.
And he has
He's
he
got
has
a
no
broccoli song,
and he has no memories or points of reference. Like, you know, if you were outside when those songs were playing, you might have been driving your first little car, had your first sound system, or you was getting somebody's daughter to do something to you for the first time. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where a lot of our affection for this music comes from, you know? And so he has none of those memories that associate with this music.
People have to realize that these newer artists, everybody's not a Joy Badass. Everybody's not a Corday. Everybody's not versed like that. And that's okay. I mean, obviously that doesn't make that artist or break that artist. For him to listen to it and appreciate it at this point in time, that should be the end of the conversation.
It makes me respect that artist more.
Yeah.
But that's really about it.
That's
you know
it.
What I mean?
I listen. At the end of the day, I'm pro, like Fred Joe Star said, I'm pro doing your Googles. Do your Googles, understand what preceded you. But I'm not about to just bang the gavel if you haven't listened to.
Who cares?
Yeah,
man?
like I don't subscribe to that part. So
You have your own influences. and
yeah,
that's fine.
I'm not vouching for
Which
that.
goes back to my original comment, which who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
We have to realize our age.
yeah.
Although you might feel like you're still this young, strapping young man walking around here listening with your Walkman on with anti-skip on. We're in a whole different era, man. People
True.
listen and consume things different.
That's true.
And him listening to it shouldn't be a story as big as it is.
No, shouldn't.
I
But
agree.
it is what it is, man.
I'm with you, bro. I didn't think that's the route I was going. Like, why is this? Because that is, as you get older, like our age, especially even people that are older than us, you hear that a lot. Man, you're not doing the knowledge. You're not doing the homework. And I think they get it confused with
Man, it is.
doing the knowledge of hip hop versus going back to listen to records.
Like there's a lot of people that never heard about. You're supposed to listen. What is that album you're supposed to listen to while watching The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, the Pink Floyd. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
people have never heard that you're supposed to listen to this Pink Floyd album and watch The Wizard of Oz and everything will match up perfectly. You know what I'm saying? This is
I tried to do that in college.
yeah, this is beyond their
Never heard of
realm.
it.
I should have been
So
going. I
you
should have been
haven't
in
even heard
class.
of it.
No.
Yeah.
And
You
Pink
s-
Floyd is another group that people will be like, I might not have ever listened to a Pink Floyd album.
Yeah.
Are you in there?
All right, man.